Welcome to Why I Quit, a show that interviews people quitting their 9-to-5 jobs in search of something different. Listen to inspiring conversations where we dive deep into the stories of why people quit their jobs, what were the hardest parts, where are they now, and any advice for people following the same path. I'm so excited to introduce you to today's guest, Pete Jones. Listen as he shares his journey of quitting multiple jobs, starting a blog, backpacking through Central and South America for 4 months, working remote while driving an RV across the country, and starting 5 different businesses with his wife, Jordan. Thanks for joining us today, Pete.
Yeah, well, it's great to be here. Good to see you again, Dave. So college, graduated, degree in business, and my top priority was to be in New York City. So whatever job I had to do to get there, that's what I did. So I finally landed a job after a few months of searching at Office Depot Corporate, where I was a territory development representative, which basically means that I was going door to door on Tuesdays, Thursdays in New York City, and then Mondays, Wednesdays, cold calling businesses that might need paper products.
Were you doing 9 to 5? Were you going in the office every day? What was kind of like your typical hours per week you were?
Yeah, it was, it was probably more like 8 to 5. It seems like such a different lifetime ago. But yeah, 8 to 5 and get there. And, there is an aspect to the office that I absolutely loved and will forever miss. I mean, I was with some of the best guys, and we just, for what it's worth, we goofed around a lot. We had a lot of fun. I got kicked out and banned from from the Rockefeller Center because you're not allowed to solicit. So it was like a high stress job, but we had fun with it, and the hours were pretty standard.
Where was your mind at? Like, did you think you were going to be there for years to come? Did you always have ambitions of like looking for other jobs or potentially starting your own thing? Where was your head at that time?
Well, like I said, my head was get to New York City, and then that made a way. And then as I was doing that job, I realized pretty quickly on that I didn't love it or even like it that much. I was there maybe July to September the following year. So, through that time, I just realized like this is not what I wanted, and I wasn't growing. And so I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but we were still young out of, college. So I was talking with a lot of friends, a lot of ideas were going back and forth, and actually we just reached out to buy a headhunter to take a pharmaceutical sales job. And I was talking to that person at the same time I was talking to one of my really good friends who was joining a startup, and he was trying to get me to join. And I'd given a good friend of mine a verbal yes. Then this pharma job came around, and I'll never forget. I was so scared to tell him, but I had to tell him that I'm going to go with the pharma job, and that hurt. But it was for the best.
Well, walk me through your thought process there.
It was easy.
Financial security.
Yeah. Pharma was a massive jump into what I was getting paid, an insane jump. Pharma didn't require me to move, and he was in Philly and I was in Hoboken, and I didn't want to move. But I talked to him and I talked to the higher ups, and it was like this exciting thing. So I kind of fed into that. I'd met face to face with his boss, and I fed in, and that led to some other things. But the pay wasn't there, and obviously there's always that idea of the equity, right? That's in the back of your mind. But I knew in my heart that at that point, I was going to travel. And so pharma, I knew was going to be the way to help me to do that, to make the money and put it away. And that was what led to that decision. And yeah, it really hurt my friend. And it was, unfortunately, I probably said yes too quickly to them. I was still kind of young and naive in that sense. So that hurt him because he had to go tell his bosses. But it all worked out for the better because I took the pharma job and then like 18 months later left to travel. But, the day that I went to tell my Office Depot boss that I was quitting, I went down the 35, stories of that building on 34th, and I walked around the block. I don't even remember how many times. And then I finally went in there and told him. So, yeah, the rest is history there.
What was that conversation?
He reminds me of the Joe Pesci in a way. So, yeah, he is a short, Italian-looking dude, hair slicked back, doesn't say much, feel like he has a temper and he could throw me out of a window. And he was just like, all right. That's what you're going to do. All right, well, it's fine. And like sat back, and all right. It's very short and like, all right, well, you can get going. No hard feelings, and business is business. So, yeah.
Were you really confident at that time as you were heading into the pharma job? Were you like nervous about leaving this job? And obviously you were upset about, the other opportunity with your friend as well.
I was so pumped. So pumped about pharma, man. It was like the carrot had dangled over me. I was getting the car, huge raise, And then the cool thing about it was I was in a transition in my life. I was single and I was living with a good friend, just moving in with a good friend. And then this was happening. And then with pharma, they do this training till you even start. So like I basically was getting everything, all these benefits, and I didn't even have to go into work until the beginning of the new year because I had to do all this studying on my own, take online tests, and then we had like a 2 week, study. So I had just gone from college to this year and a half job where I could barely get any time off, had to take a bus if I want to go home. And now I had this block from like October, end of September till the beginning of the new year where I actually could go home and study and see family and friends. And I was in cloud nine for sure. Plus getting paid. It was great.
The way you were talking about it, obviously travel's in the back of your mind at this point. So are you looking at this job as a means to an end of like you just want to make as much money as you can so you can be able to pursue other things and then eventually travel? Is that the goal at the time?
Yeah, it was the goal at the time. And that year, I remember going into the library a few months later after I got the job and just checking out books from Costa Rica and Peru and just like mapping out. I was going to do a world trip, but that didn't happen.
Did that make it difficult to enjoy your day-to-day at work when you knew that this was getting to the point, or were you so excited about the opportunity to travel down the road, you're like, this is awesome that I'm getting the opportunity to do this, so let me just make the best of this job, and then in 18 months I'm going to travel the world?
Yeah, I don't think that. Well, let me think here. So, with the day-to-day of anything, it's easy when you get kind of wrapped up into the mundane to forget about that purpose that's out there. So that was kind of the case. And there were parts of the pharma job that I genuinely enjoyed. So that part was fun, but the travel was in the back of my mind pushing me on. And then around the same time, my girlfriend at the time and now wife, Jordan, we launched a blog called Quarter for Your Crisis, going through like what it's like and the struggles of after college and finding the right job and career path. So like there was like this other exciting thing too. And pharma just allowed me the flexibility. I mean, the hours were ridiculous, the time and autonomy that I needed. So I was pretty steady with it.
Are you doing that nights and weekends? How much time are you devoting? And what was the goal of it? Was it just a fun project, or did you have any goals behind it as well?
Yeah, the goal of the blog initially was to really highlight people we called degenerates, and that's the name we came up with. We kind of redefined the term, but people that were doing different things. Kind of want to put a spotlight on those who have gone against the norm. So I interviewed another good friend, Ryan Kennedy, and I interviewed him because during college he took a semester off to hike the Appalachian Trail. And, I just really we wanted to create inspiration around doing stuff that, not everyone else is doing things that you might want to do, but you're told otherwise. Because we get groomed in college to go a certain way. And I started realizing really quickly that to not go that way is going to cause a lot of friction. And so people need to hear that it's okay to do it. And so we just started finding people like that, people that are doing interesting things, et cetera, highlighting those stories, blogging about, real issues, like real struggles in the day-to-day. So yeah, that was kind of the gist of it.
When you were starting up the blog, were there any consistent themes that you kept seeing coming through, or specific types of people that were gravitating towards that?
I think the overall specific theme was people wanted this. I remember the first time we published a post and we got featured on HuffPost, which back then you couldn't just do. You had to get, they had to pick you, and people were just, oh my gosh, I need this. This is exactly what I feel. And so that was like the coolest thing to know that we had hit this, this area of people that feel this way. They might feel trapped, and they can at least, find some relief through what we're sharing.
Did you have an end date in mind of here's where we're going to travel? Where was the blog going? Kind of give me a roadmap of where that was.
It's so easy to dream and to write out these things, but one of the scariest things is actually saying it out loud. Because when you say it out loud, then you're either actually going to do it or you're not. And so I remember Jordan and I had only been dating for maybe 6 months, and that summer I was at her beach house, and that's when we decided. Well, by that time I was gonna leave at the beginning of the new year, so the end of the year, beginning of the new year, and so I finally started telling people. And Jordan, I remember when I first had to tell her, hey, this is my plan. If you're coming, great. If not, I don't know what to say. But she was on board too, and so her journey is different, but she ended up leaving a high-paying consulting job to quit, move to New York, take a startup job that she could work remotely. So she had already been having to go through some crazy things that you would imagine from someone that just got out of Georgetown, leaving, and then she had to now, as I'm at this beach with her, stand up there kind of thing yeah, we're actually going to go travel. South and Central America at the beginning of next year. And so once we put it out there, it was like, get ready, gear up. I mean, for me, it's different. Jordan's family's different. My family's different. But so for my personal side was like, wow, okay, I guess he's going to do this. Because I already had done a little bit of that, like just moving to New York and figured stuff out. My family is still a little bit concerned, and it seemed far away enough that they weren't going to push the envelope too much. But yeah, there was still a little bit of like, oh man, I'm going to say this. I mean, I have to do it, or I'm not. If I don't do it, I'm a liar. So
seems like you had your mind made up, and it seems like you were going to go down that path. Were there difficult parts for you? Did you have any like second guessing in your head? Or were there things that you were like super nervous about, or were you just gung ho of like, this is what I want to do and I'm going to do?
I mean, I was pretty gung ho. I think part of that might not be the greatest. Maybe if I had stepped back, I should have been a little more hesitant. But I preface that by saying if I had hesitation, my favorite phrase for Jordan is always hesitation kills. Like we're walking across the street, if we're driving, and it's like, no, hesitation kills. So I think there's a time and place for it, but in that point, at my age, I could have hesitated and stayed at the pharma job, and never seen what I saw, and never started what I started. And everything that I was feeling was confirmed towards the end of that year, and toward getting closer to my date of departure. So probably towards the end of summer, early October. I'll never forget it. I was making good money. The hours were insanely awesome. I mean, with pharma, if they cover your drug by insurance, it's not even really selling, which is crazy. You just go there and schmooze and hang out and talk to the doctors, and you could literally run a business or three on the side in my territory because everything was covered. Yeah. But I was with my rep, my partner. We were in our storage unit putting boxes away. I said something to her. I hadn't told her yet, just along the lines of just like how I wasn't really being challenged anymore. And I said something along the lines of, I feel like my brain is just going to go to mush. Like I'm just not going to use my potential. I'm like staring at a brick wall is kind of like where I went. She looked at me and she said, well, if you can get over that, you're going to live a pretty good life. You can do this for another 20 years, make really good money, put it away, and then live. And I was like, in my head, I didn't say it, but I was like, no, I can't get over that. I can't. Sorry. So that was like the icing on the cake. Yep, I'm making the right decision.
Now you're traveling across Central and South America. I think you were, how long was it? It was 6 months you were gone, right? Something like that.
I think it was around 4. Yeah, 4-ish.
And I think something that's always interesting about traveling is it like changes your perspective and kind of takes you out of the societal norms, right? Of all of a sudden you're not working 9 to 5, you're not going Monday through Friday, you're not like, kind of just going through the motions of like the same week in and week out. Did that change your mindset on things and your perception of things?
I was very, very present in traveling. I mean, a dream since I was a boy was to go to the Galapagos and see those animals because I'm a huge animal guy. And that was the first place we went. And so, I mean, it was like sensory overload explosion, and it was mind-blowing. But we were still running our blog down there. So I actually just found my tape recorder. I haven't even released these stories, but we would go down there and we would just meet people, and I'd say, hey, we run this blog called this. You look like you're our age. Would you mind sharing? What troubles do you face being in this age? Where do people in your culture want you to go? Where are you going? And we got Argentinians on there, Canadians on there, other South Americans on there, and it's just the coolest thing to see. We saw that everyone from all over the place felt the same way, and here we were. So that's what we were doing down there as well. But dude, we were super present. How could you not be when you're swimming with a manta ray and an iguana?
What was it like coming back to the U.S.? Did you have a plan at that time? Were you just coming back from scratch and just going to figure it out? Like where were you when you came?
We came back. We left early. We knew it was time because for us, it got to that point as 2 type A's. Don't get me wrong, traveling was fun and all, but I couldn't do it forever. I couldn't. And we were ready to hit the ground running. I was ready to start something, and I knew we weren't going to go back to corporate world. So I was ready to come back. I remember getting into New York. I remember like just seeing the skyline. I'm like, oh man, we're back here. Like it happened so fast. And a few things that hit me right away. Number one was that we had just had this life-changing, altering experience that people dream about but never take action on. And it only took 4 months out of my life, and I came back and everyone was the same. I remember thinking like, this is the same drama. You're dealing with the same problem with that girl, same problem with him. I don't even know how to relate to you right now. Like, go do something different. So that was the first one. I remember coming back and thinking that immediately, because we were in South and Central America, we went to a Phillies game not shortly after, and I was like walking in the crowd. I remember it so vividly. I'm like, gosh, everyone is so busy. Everyone's so consumed with them, and like I just been around these people in South and Central America where, for what it's worth, way more family oriented, way more slow down. Let me welcome you. I mean, we spent some time in a village that was so small in Costa Rica that the taxi driver taking us there drove past it. And so we got to meet some people there, and one of the families invited all of us in, me, Jack, Ryan, all of our friends, 7 gringos they'd really never seen, into their home for ceviche. Hey, let's just sit and have some ceviche. And just, that was like a huge for me, because like, whoa, I forgot about this fast pace where we really just don't care about anything but us and what's going to be in it for me. And I was just like, I remember being in that Phillies game thinking that, like, oh my gosh, I need to slow down. So that was the other thing. And then, some other basic reverse culture shock things that you can imagine. Food. I got allergies. That was kind of weird. I was eating organic food for 4 months, like chicken off the spit and bananas off a tree. And I came back and I couldn't eat the processed food, and I struggled with allergies. So
as you start to realize these things, what does that do? Is it a concept of not wanting to go back to the way it was and trying to, be more present and be less busy? And is that, by starting your own business, or, what comes next at this point?
Yeah, well, next for us was not going back to the corporate world, because it's always there. And with that came a lot of challenges. Like that was like probably some of the hardest stuff, because I ended up living at Jordan's beach house that summer. And her dad's a very successful attorney. And I'll never forget it. I'm a big journalist. I wrote it down. One of the first things he said to us, which was actually on the way home from the airport, he picked us up. He said, "You guys are just so flippant with your careers." And that was like, ugh, we didn't have anything going. We were just trying to figure it out. So that summer, I was like, well, we have this blog. We somewhat know marketing. We both can build basic websites. I have a background in sales. Let's go for it. And so we basically made a spreadsheet of every business down in Avalon, New Jersey, Stone Harbor, that didn't have a good website presence, and started knocking and just said, hey, we'll build your website 500, 700, if you have to, maybe a little more. So people started giving us a shot. And that's how we started to make some income and just do something, because we were hungry to do something. But there were so many challenges. And my best friend, he was in a spinning class with me down there at the beach. And he said, Pete, you've had some pretty cool things happen, but I really think you need to, he basically saying you need to gear up and provide for Jordan if you're going to marry her, and her dad needs to be able to know that you're going to support her, and you need to do something. I think there's something there to be said about people that just don't understand, even though you love them, even though they think they're looking out for your best interest. Something like this, and you've been through it, when you're going way off of what's like normal for most people, that some of that advice is really just, you got to take the meat, spit out the bones.
And I think a lot of people, want to quit their jobs. They're looking to start something, but they don't know exactly what to start. They don't know what they're going to do. But you guys had never built a website before. You guys had never worked with small businesses on their SEO and digital marketing, all these things, but you figured it out, right? I think were you at a point where you were like, you believed in that idea, or were you just like, whatever it takes to not have to go back to corporate, we're going to make it?
It's basically number two, like we're just not going to go back to corporate America, because we have too much brain power between both of us to not at least try and give something a shot. My focus wasn't like, oh, I want to avoid corporate America. Just like, there's way too many opportunities that are right in front of us that we can at least start and see what we like and don't like.
How long was it from when you started building those spreadsheets and reaching out to when you were like, wow, we actually have a business here, we're onto something?
That's a challenge, because we quickly found, we landed our first few clients, and that was the most exciting thing. I mean, within a month or two, we landed a few. But that led into social media management, and then eventually what we got really good at with social media advertising. But that was a while. I mean, till I felt like we were secure in our business was a few years.
I hear a lot, just like, talking to people that start their own businesses, it takes years, right? Till you've built up enough of a base when you feel comfortable or growing, and like how there's always growing pains and learning curves early on when you first start. Did you know, like when you're starting this business, how difficult it was going to be and how long it was going to take to feel more stable?
No.
Do you think you had any expectations of what you thought it was going to be back then?
Expectations were very low. Still young, still wanting to have fun. So for me, it was like, let's just get a few people, start working for them, see where it evolves. And we were already planning our next trip. That summer we left to do a huge cross country trip. So for us, we wanted something that would allow us to be remote again, travel again, and still support businesses. So that was like the kind of one track, short-sighted mind. It wasn't really thinking longevity. It wasn't really until after we got back from that I was like, all right, we need to think more long-term here.
It feels like every new thing you try leads to a new opportunity. More of my question goes to, for the people out there that are looking to try something new, what's kind of your advice for them as they're like thinking about these things?
You have to be willing to fail fast. The brain, it's something that I'm actually starting to look into more, but the brain thrives on that novelty, learning new things. And so, when you talk about trying your purpose and all this stuff, like the reality is you're going to have to try. Not everyone knows their purpose. Even me, like still trying to figure out that pinnacle, but you have to try different things. So we tried this. We tried building the website and tried just managing and posting and taking pictures. Double no. And then like we started advertising, really like that. And so like that started leading into running Facebook and Google ads for local service-based businesses. Then we niched even more and did it for wedding professionals, and we built out a course. So like there's all this evolution of like that one thing we really liked and saw that we were good at that led to that. Yeah, I think you just have to be willing, because you're not going to know right away. I might think I like to play the ukulele, and I do, and sing, and I do, but I'm not that great at it. So that might not be the best thing, but maybe I'm good at this. And if that aligns with like the results that we saw or that are making people happy that you're working with, then there's something to go off of.
I know you get to a point where you start to think about giving up the services side of the business. Walk me through your thought process there. Was it, you weren't fulfilled in the type of work, you were looking to do something different?
Those years were just some of the best years of our lives, actually. I mean, we had pitched a bunch of RV companies. They gave us an RV for free, and we traveled around, and we were running this business, and it was super successful. Loved it. But after probably like a year or two of doing it, man, Jordan and I realized like our whole heart isn't here, like something's missing. And so we really just started to step back and think like, well, what is it that we think is missing? And, there's a lot of thinking through there because you're making money and we were actually really helping people out. I mean, we believed in our product and people were changed from it. One of the most important ways to finding that thing or whatever you want to call it, your purpose, is really just the authenticity part of it. And I think that's something that Jordan and I brought to everything we did. And so if I felt like we weren't being 100% authentic with these courses, it doesn't mean I'm going to go out and quit, because you're going to have days that you're not feeling great. But like my heart wasn't in it. Like, well, what is my heart in? And obviously faith is a big part of our journey. I just didn't know how that all worked into things. And I started thinking along the lines of a physical product. I wanted to hold something and feel something.
You're combining your passions, right? Of like you're traveling all across the West Coast, you're living in a van, you built this business, you're helping people, you're making great money, but like something's still not there. And I think it's like so important for like, people to actually think through, like why they're actually quitting or what they actually want to do. And you have to be so intentional about it, because I think it's oversimplified too many times.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think there's also something to be said about staying in a career, even though we're leaving careers, because not all corporate things are bad. And I was reading, and the story came in a book, and it just said three bricklayers were asked what you're doing. The first said, I'm laying bricks. The second said, I'm building a church. And the third said, I'm making the house of God. And it was just to show like how people really identified with what they're doing as just a job, career, or lifelong purpose. And so I think that transfers over, obviously, even into your own business. Like you can have your own business and not feel it can just feel like a job. And I think that's kind of like where we got to with what we were doing, and we wanted something more impactful for us, but also for others. I think there's something to be said about success versus significance. And I think success is really focused on the self. And I think significance is like, well, how am I gonna build others up? How am I gonna create lives for others that really has nothing to do with me? Just use the gifts within me to support them and help them to be the best that they can be. And I think that shift of mindset is hard to find at times, especially in our country. But you look at Charity Water, Scott, like those guys, like they clearly just like, how can I help others and make an impact there? So I think that's kind of like where our mindset is shifting in a different way than we currently were.
I know something that you've talked about in the past is like making sure you have enough time for, your kids and Jordan and all these things. Have you been able to like coincide those as you've like started building up this company?
Yeah, I mean, that's been a challenge, and it's something we're still working through. I mean, structure and organization of a day as someone who works at home primarily with kids that are home is harder than starting a business. what one of my passions is now, really, and that's probably going to see more of that in the future, maybe a new product. But yeah, that's something we're still trying to figure out with each new kid. It's a different set of, like, you think you have, like, everything is locked in, and then the new one comes, it's like everything is completely all out of whack. And then we're finally getting into a stride now with two, but things can change quickly. So I was listening to a podcast with some of my favorite leadership guys, and they were saying that on average, studies show that you work 3 to 5 hours tops of productive work. And finding that time, I was literally just writing this down yesterday, finding what that time frame is for you is the most important thing you can do. And so for me, it is the morning hours. And so I'm in the process now of, like, making sure that I block out those 3 hours to just have that focused work. And if I'm good with it, then I have more time with my family. But yeah, it's definitely one of the most challenging things, actually putting boundaries as someone who works for yourself and works at home, between you and family, because I'm not going to lie. There are times I look at people in corporate jobs with envy, not envy, but just like, yeah, you think this is awesome. And there are so many things that I can't even get over. But you're not worried about a paycheck, and you come home and you can just have a beer and a burger and be like, yeah, you're constantly running through things in your mind. So it's a process to learn how to shut down and be present. But I think I've gotten better over the years, for sure.
Wrapping up, if you just want to kind of give, like, a brief description of Kairos Journal, what you're doing now, and kind of like where you want to take it.
Yeah, so the Kairos Journal is a 13-week journal, really built around centering your faith on God. And I would say there's a part of the Kairos Journal that isn't highlighted enough, but the left side of the journal really helped to get your mind focused. And a big heart of ours, since we were doing Quarter Fear Crisis, is managing screen time, social media time effectively, and recognizing the damage it can have. And so with the Kairos Journal, the whole left side is going through prayers, what your memorization verse for the week is, gratitude, and then an intention for the day. So, like, obviously all of those are pretty straightforward, but as a whole, they're meant to really just get your mind off of the cat video and Michael Jordan dunk you just were scrolling through for an hour, so that when you enter time in the Bible praying, you're actually focused at the task on hand. And so that's what our main product is. And we have some complementary products there, and we have some new ones coming out as well. And I think moving forward, we're going to obviously carry the theme of faith, but really bringing more in that focused, being intentional with your time, recognizing what the screen does, and spending time research, and recognizing how it impacts your mental health, and ways to organize your day to not be caught up in the online world is really a big part of what we're about, and just being present with those around you.
Thank you for listening. It really means a lot to us. We want to hear from you as we keep growing. Please reach out on whyiquit.co with any feedback, or if you have any guests that you think would be a good fit. Subscribe on whyiquit.substack.com to get an update every Wednesday with the newest guest. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube to get notified with the latest episodes. Also, a special thanks to Chris Dole for the music. Check out his newest album, Here's to You. Thank you, and we will be back next Wednesday.